What kind of person shatters a car mirror in broad daylight and expects to walk away unscathed? The parking lot was alive with the hum of city life, cars crawling through tight spaces, shoppers weaving between vehicles, the air thick with exhaust and anticipation. Karen, a woman whose presence demanded attention, stood at the center of it all. Her face, flushed with a mix of indignation and entitlement, twisted into a sneer as she gripped a tire iron. The sleek black BMW parked beside her had done nothing to deserve her wrath, yet its side mirror now lay in pieces on the asphalt, a glittering testament to her rage. She didn't notice the security guard watching from the corner, his hand already on his radio, or the young woman approaching, her footsteps quickening as she saw the wreckage of her car. Karen's voice cut through the morning air like a blade. "This is what happens when you park like an idiot," she bellowed, though no one had claimed the car yet. Her oversized figure loomed over the vehicle, her floral blouse clashing with the urban gray around her. Shoppers paused, their carts frozen mid-push, as her tirade grew louder. "People think they can just take up 2 spaces and get away with it. Not on my watch." The tire iron swung lazily in her hand, a threat to anything else that dared cross her path. She was a storm, and the parking lot was her stage. Maya, the BMW's owner, emerged from the crowd, her heart pounding as she spotted the damage. She was a quiet woman, a graphic designer who'd saved for years to buy that car. It wasn't just a vehicle. It was a symbol of her independence, her late nights at work, her refusal to let life's setbacks define her. Now, staring at the shattered mirror, she felt a heat rising in her chest, not just anger, but betrayal. Who could do this? Her eyes locked on Karen, who was still ranting, oblivious to the growing crowd. Maya's voice trembled but carried a steely edge. "That's my car. What did you do?" Karen spun around, her sneer deepening. "Your car? Maybe you should learn to park it properly, sweetheart." The condescension dripped from her words, and Maya's hands clenched into fists. She wasn't confrontational by nature, but something about Karen's smugness lit a fire in her. The security guard, a man named Javier with a no-nonsense demeanor, stepped closer, his radio crackling. "Ma'am, put the tire iron down," he said firmly. Karen's eyes narrowed, but she didn't comply. Instead, she doubled down, pointing the tool at Maya. "This girl's the problem, not me. She's taking up space that doesn't belong to her." The crowd murmured, phones already out, recording the spectacle. Maya's voice rose, steady now. "I parked within the lines. You had no right to touch my car." She stepped forward, her gaze unwavering. Karen laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Rights? Honey, I'm teaching you a lesson." "You're welcome." The arrogance was suffocating, but Maya held her ground. Javier's voice cut in again, sharper this time. "Ma'am, I saw you smash that mirror. The police are on their way." Karen's face faltered for a split second, but she quickly recovered, tossing her head back. "Go ahead, call them. I'm not scared of anyone." What Karen didn't know, what no one in that parking lot could have known, was that Maya wasn't just a random victim. She'd been through worse than this. 2 years ago, her brother had been wrongfully arrested, accused of vandalism he didn't commit. The memory of those sleepless nights, the endless calls to lawyers, the weight of injustice, surged through her now. She wasn't going to let this woman rewrite the truth. "You're not getting away with this," Maya said, her voice low but fierce. "You think you can bully your way through life, but not today." Karen scoffed, but the crowd was shifting. Whispers turned to murmurs of agreement. A teenage girl in the back, clutching a skateboard, shouted, "Yeah, you tell her." The energy was changing, and Karen's bravado began to crack. She hadn't expected resistance, not from a quiet woman like Maya, not from a crowd that was supposed to be on her side. Javier stepped between them, his presence a quiet command. "Step back, ma'am," he told Karen. "You're not going anywhere until the police get here." The tension hung heavy, the air thick with anticipation. Karen's grip on the tire iron tightened, her eyes darting between Maya and Javier. For a moment, it seemed like she might swing again, but the distant wail of sirens froze her in place. The crowd parted as a police cruiser pulled into the lot, its lights flashing. Maya's heart raced, not with fear but with a strange sense of clarity. This wasn't just about a broken mirror. It was about standing up to someone who thought they could bend the world to their will. As the officers stepped out, Karen's demeanor shifted. She dropped the tire iron, her hands flying up in a gesture of innocence. "This is a misunderstanding," she cried, her voice suddenly softer, almost pleading. "I was just trying to make a point." But the crowd wasn't buying it. Phones were still recording, capturing every word, every gesture. Maya stood tall, her eyes locked on Karen's. "You made your point," she said quietly. "Now face the consequences." The officers approached, their faces unreadable. One of them, a woman with sharp eyes, glanced at the shattered mirror and then at Karen. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to come with us," she said. Karen's mouth opened, but no words came out. For the first time, she looked small, her bluster stripped away. The crowd watched in silence as the officer began asking questions, her notepad already out. Javier handed over his own statement, calm and precise, while Maya recounted the events, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. Xi artifact _ID equals 668A7EDB3E2848880A4F11ECF9BA2F674. Artifact version equals EB0F3DF4FD194DD69743357CC8CFC1B6. Title equals Karen smashed a BMW mirror. Part 2.MD. Content type equals text/markdown. The parking lot felt like a stage now, with Karen at its center, her bravado crumbling under the weight of reality. The officer's pen scratched across her notepad, each word sealing Karen's fate a little tighter. Maya stood a few feet away, her arms crossed, her gaze unwavering. She wasn't gloating, there was no joy in watching someone unravel, but she felt a quiet strength growing inside her. The crowd, still lingering, whispered among themselves, their phones still raised, capturing the moment when a bully's facade began to crack. Karen's voice, once booming, now wavered as she tried to spin her story. "I didn't mean to break anything," she said, her tone almost convincing. "I was just upset. You know how it is with bad parking." The officer, unfazed, raised an eyebrow. "So you admit to striking the vehicle?" Karen hesitated, her eyes darting to the crowd, then to the tire iron lying on the ground like evidence of her own recklessness. "It was an accident," she mumbled, but the lie hung heavy in the air. Javier, standing nearby, shook his head slightly, his expression one of quiet disgust. He'd seen people like Karen before, people who thought their anger gave them a free pass to destroy. "I saw the whole thing," he told the officer. "She swung that tire iron like she meant it." Maya's mind flashed back to her brother's ordeal, the way he'd been painted as a villain for something he didn't do. The memory was a twist in her gut, a reminder of how easily truth could be buried under lies. But not this time. She stepped forward, her voice clear. "I have a dashcam," she said. The words landed like a bombshell. Karen's head snapped up, her eyes wide with panic. "It's been recording since I parked. It'll show exactly what happened." The crowd buzzed, the teenage girl with the skateboard letting out a low whistle. "That's game over," she muttered, and a few people nodded in agreement. Karen's face drained of color. "You're lying," she spat, but her voice lacked conviction. Maya didn't flinch. "We'll see," she said simply, walking to her car to retrieve the footage. The officers followed, one of them radioing for backup as the situation escalated. Karen's hands trembled as she tried to maintain her composure, but the cracks were spreading. She turned to the crowd, searching for an ally, but found only cold stares. The tide had turned, and she was alone. As Maya handed over the dashcam footage, the officer plugged it into a portable device. The small screen lit up, showing the parking lot from the BMW's perspective. There was Karen, clear as day, storming up to the car, tire iron in hand. The footage captured her rant, her swing, the mirror shattering in a spray of glass. The crowd leaned in, their murmurs growing louder. Karen's voice broke through, desperate now. That's not the whole story. She provoked me. But the footage told no such tale. It showed Maya nowhere near the car until after the damage was done. The officer looked at Karen, her expression hardening. "Ma'am, this is vandalism. You're looking at charges." Karen's knees buckled slightly, and she grabbed the edge of a nearby car for support. "Charges?" she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. "You can't be serious. I'm a good person." The words sounded hollow even to her. Maya watched, her heart a mix of relief and sorrow. She didn't want to destroy anyone, but she couldn't let this slide. Not after everything she'd been through. Not after seeing how people like Karen could hurt others without a second thought. The crowd began to disperse, but not before a few lingered to offer Maya words of support. The teenage girl with the skateboard approached, her eyes bright. "You're awesome," she said, giving Maya a fist bump. "Don't let people like her push you around." Maya smiled, a small, genuine smile that felt like a victory in itself. Javier nodded at her, a silent acknowledgement of her strength. The officers were now leading Karen to the cruiser, her hands cuffed behind her back. She wasn't shouting anymore. Her head was bowed, her earlier fire extinguished. But the story wasn't over. As the officers prepared to leave, Maya overheard Karen muttering to herself, something about getting even. It was a fleeting comment, but it sent a chill down Maya's spine. She'd won this round, but people like Karen didn't let go easily. The thought lingered as she drove home, the broken mirror a constant reminder of the day's chaos. She didn't know then that Karen's downfall was only beginning, that the consequences of her actions would ripple far beyond this parking lot. At home, Maya uploaded the dashcam footage to social media, not out of spite but as a warning. "This is what happens when you think you're above the rules," she wrote. The post spread quickly, the video racking up thousands of views within hours. Comments poured in, some praising Maya's composure, others condemning Karen's behavior. But one comment stood out, buried in the flood of reactions. An anonymous user claiming to know Karen, hinting at a history of similar outbursts. "She's done this before," the comment read. "Check her record." Maya's heart skipped a beat. Was this just internet gossip? Or was there more to Karen's story? Xi artifact _ID equals BC3 B73 33 D4 B4 6 B5 9 F39 D6 A045 D7 9 1 EC. Artifact version equals 3CB9 583 B73 44 A87 D01041 Ace 86 A9. Title equals Karen smashed a BMW mirror. Part 3.md. Content type equals text/markdown. Maya couldn't shake the anonymous comment. It gnawed at her, a whisper of something darker beneath Karen's public meltdown. She didn't want to dive into a rabbit hole, but the idea that Karen might have a history of this behavior felt too significant to ignore. The next morning, she contacted the police station, asking if there was any way to learn more about Karen's past. The officer she spoke to was cautious but confirmed that Karen had a record minor incidents, mostly dismissed, but a pattern of aggressive behavior in public spaces. "She's been warned before," the officer said. "This time, it's serious." Karen, meanwhile, was grappling with her new reality. Released on bail, she returned to her suburban home, where neighbors whispered behind curtains. The video of her outburst had gone viral, her face plastered across local news sites with headlines like, "Parking lot Karen faces vandalism charges." Her job as a real estate agent was in jeopardy. Clients were canceling showings, citing her unprofessional conduct. Friends stopped calling, and her social media accounts were flooded with criticism. She sat at her kitchen table, staring at the tire iron she'd brought home, now a symbol of her unraveling life. But Karen wasn't ready to surrender. She hired a lawyer, a slick man who promised to spin the narrative in her favor. "We'll say you were provoked," he told her. "We'll paint you as the victim of a society that's too quick to judge." Karen latched onto the idea, convincing herself she'd been wronged. She began posting online, claiming Maya had instigated the incident, that the dashcam footage was edited. Her posts gained some traction among a small group of sympathizers, but the broader public wasn't swayed. The truth was too clear, the evidence too damning. Maya, meanwhile, was rebuilding. The repair shop fixed her mirror, and her insurance covered the cost, but the emotional toll lingered. She started a blog, not just about the incident but about standing up to bullies, about finding strength in the face of injustice. Her words resonated, drawing readers who shared their own stories of confronting entitled behavior. The teenage girl from the parking lot, whose name was Riley, reached out online, offering to help spread the word. Together, they organized a small community event to raise awareness about accountability and kindness, turning a moment of pain into something hopeful. The courtroom was quiet when Karen's case came up. Maya sat in the back, not as a victim but as a witness to justice. Karen's lawyer tried to deflect blame, but the judge wasn't having it. The dashcam footage played on a screen, and the room fell silent as Karen's actions spoke for themselves. The judge's voice was firm. "Ms. Thompson, your behavior was reckless and deliberate. You've shown a pattern of disregard for others' property and safety." Karen was ordered to pay restitution, fined heavily, and sentenced to community service. As she left the courtroom, her head hung low, the weight of her actions finally sinking in. But the story didn't end in defeat. Maya's blog grew, inspiring others to share their stories and stand up for what was right. Karen, forced to confront her behavior during community service, began to change. She worked at a local shelter, where she met people whose struggles dwarfed her own. One day, a woman at the shelter thanked her for a small act of kindness, handing out blankets, and Karen felt something shift. It was small, but it was a start. She never apologized to Maya, but she stopped posting online, stopped blaming others. Her downfall had been public, but her redemption, if it came, would be quiet. Maya stood at the community event, surrounded by people who'd read her story. Riley was there, skateboarding in circles, laughing with new friends. Javier stopped by, offering a nod of respect. The air was filled with hope, not vengeance. Maya spoke to the crowd, her voice steady. "We all have a choice," she said, "to tear others down or to lift them up. I choose the latter." The applause was soft but heartfelt, a reminder that even in a world of Karens, there was room for growth, for justice, for healing.